why you should stop trying to close the sale. Hey, everybody, I'm Donnie Bovine, the CEO and founder of Success Champions and the author of Endless Stream of Referrals. And this is Growth Mode, a sales and business development podcast geared up for salespeople and business owners, teaching you how to sell more and get more done with your business development. Hanging out with me, as always, sliding in and off screen, is Kevin Snow, the sales and automation badass and genius. And on this episode, we're going to talk specifically why you need to quit focusing on closing the sale.
So closing is this huge. We talk about this all the time with our Success Champions networking members in different trainings we're doing, on podcasts we show up on. I really love your take on closing and whether you should be doing it or not.
Yeah, so it's really simple for me. I think for years, I mean, as far back as I can remember in sales, and even before my time, people have talked about you got to be closing, always be closing, Glengarry Glen Ross style, and you've always got to get to a close. And I think it's wrong. And here's the reason I think it's wrong. Closing, if you want to get, to this kind of ethereal type thought process, closing means you're shutting down, right? Like you're turning things off. I don't want you to focus on closing. I want you to focus specifically on closure. And I've said this a bajillion times, but sales is nothing more than a conversation with an outcome, right? So it is two people sitting across from each other trying to decide if they should work together. And I think if a salesperson is smart, they're intelligent, and they're a real person, they're trying to make sure that the person they're sitting across from is somebody they really want to work with. And if you go into this mindset that I got to close everybody I sit across from, you're going to lose, because you're going to become a transactional style salesperson that nobody wants to do business with. So for me, this entire idea is, how do I get to closure? And closure means, how do I get to, cool, it's a yes, let's move forward, let's do business. It's no, we're not a fit for each other. We'll still be friends, we'll move on, but it's not going to be a work. Or it's this significant next step that we can get to. So it's not, hey, it's a yes right now. It's, I need to get more information together. I need to learn more. Can we schedule another meeting? And then that meeting gets put on both people's calendars, so there's an expectation and an outcome of that next meeting. And I think if you focus on getting to closure and stop focusing on close, you're going to find yourself winning a lot more conversations and getting into a lot more badass conversations.
Yeah, I love this idea. And it's funny, the more that we put this idea out there, the more hate mail you get
dude.
on social media. You got one recently that the guy literally basically said, you have no idea about sales. You need to actually go out and sell things. And I'm like, he obviously doesn't know Donnie's.
I had another guy, flat out on TikTok tell me I was stupid over this idea. I've got a guy literally, as we're recording this, on LinkedIn that says anybody who doesn't talk about closing can't sell. So I mean, this is why I know it's such the right thing, because it pisses off your traditional transactional salesperson.
Well, and what it does is it shifts the idea from the big outcome at the end of a sales process to outcomes throughout the conversation. So,
yes.
For how Donnie sells, it's a one call close. He doesn't have, for his stuff, it's not this long drawn out sales process. But for a lot of products, it is a longer sales process, and the closing that has all makes the focus on that. Hey, is there going to be a contract or not a contract? Whereas looking for closure keeps you focused on, hey, what are the next steps, and having both sides agreed, hey, here's what we're doing next, and agreeing to continue a conversation and then and set up more next steps and getting through that process. And I think for the complex sales process, this actually makes that process easier because it keeps you focused on, hey, what do I need to do to get them to the next stage of the process? In tech sales is, how do I get them to the point where we're doing a trial installation? How do we get them to the point where they're doing this testing thing where we can confirm stuff? And that's the power of this shift. It's not all just focus on one big climax at the end. You're focused on all the little wins along the way.
Yeah, yeah, and Kevin's not saying you're going for that old school. Let's get it, 100 yeses, all along the way. It's focused on getting in and evaluating each other through the process. I mean, look, all of us have brought on clients that we regretted bringing on because they end up being a fucking
Yep.
nightmare. They end up being a complete pain in the ass, and that they completely destroy our soul working with them. I would rather find out up front if a person is built that way before I invest a whole lot of time, assets, and energy into that company. So, and if you're looking for those things, if you're having these adult conversations with people, you're really diving in to figure out how they operate and work. And this allows you to get a lot more cool things on the table. And what Kevin's saying is it allows you to get to the next step of that conversation because you know what it takes specifically to be an ideal company that you want to work with, right? We've all had those phenomenal badass clients. Like if we had 100 of that perfect client that we would love to work with, we would be making a ton of money and enjoying the hell out of life. So if you know what makes the ideal and most badass client for you, now you can go in and you can have conversations with people and get them to prove that they are that type of company. They're that caliber of individual that you really want to work with. And the more time you spend up front evaluating whether you should be working with that person, the more you stay away from being an actual jackass salesperson. And it allows you to have these just phenomenal freaking conversations.
Yeah, I'm going to pull a Donnie right now and just say that if you need to use the takeaway close, the Ben Franklin close, or any of those techniques in your sales process, you don't actually know how to sell.
Agreed. Agreed.
And
Yep.
that's one of the reasons that introverts can be really good salespeople is because, one, those make us feel really, slimy, and we don't like them. They don't feel natural to us. But our sales process is all about listening and analyzing and finding out the issues so we can have those types of conversations. We don't like the high level chit chatty things. We want to dive in and have real good conversations when we're talking to people. And that's one of the things that's really key for sales is that you aren't, a lot of salespeople just jump in and are like, all right, so here's all my stuff and I'm going to force this square peg into this round hole and you're going to like it. And I'm going to use all these fancy sales techniques to get you to buy. And that's why you have buyer's regret, buyer's remorse. That's why that term has come around, is because people do that. That's what sales has done to the world. Whereas the best salespeople are going and they're digging and trying to find out what the real issues are. And then trying to figure out, all right, so how do I get them a solution? What do I do for them that it's going to like, wow, this saves my life. This makes my world awesome. And, and, and vice versa. They're also looking at, all right, so is this person going to make my world horrible if I bring them on as a client? And they're getting to that point where they can both say, yes, we want to keep talking. This is awesome. We're loving where this is going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, as you and listeners, as you guys evolve as salespeople, you're going to get to a point to where you'll know very quickly whether the person you sit across from is the caliber of type of person you want to work with. And you're going to understand if they have the right energy levels, they're the right people. And the more you perfect that process, you're going to learn that sales is going to get a lot simpler for you because you're not so hung up on that moment of, well, should we start Friday? You know, or all those other dumb things that you hear people say. And you know, most people who teach sales come from a transactional sale. It's a one time deal. You're never going to see the person again. And that's where this whole idea of closing comes from is you got to close them. You got to get that deal done because you're never going to see him again. So blah, 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 blah. And for me, I love the entire idea of closure because it just gets to an outcome. And when you don't have closure in life and everything else, you are constantly in this battle for well, should I call them, should I email them, what do I do, and your pipeline's filled full of all this shit that's never going to freaking close. Get to closure, guys, and watch how much it elevates your professional level of conversations and how you move things forward boldly.
Well, you look at any normal conversation that a person has at a networking event or a family function, church, school board, PTA meeting, whatever it is. You don't just like have a conversation and then just wait for a pause and then just like walk away. There is some way that you have closure to that conversation so that everyone on both sides, everyone included in that conversation, knows that, hey, the conversation's done, or what's happening. And that's really what you're talking about, is
100%.
everyone leaves that sales engagement and knows what's happening next and is happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, and that's everything. And for me, guys, I think the biggest takeaways from this episode is quit trying to close shit out. Quit trying to browbeat people over the head, and let's have professional level conversations. Let's have real conversations that get to a happy outcome. And that happy outcome, very merry, is a lot of times it's going to be no, because either they're not a fit, you're not a fit, and all of that's okay. So stop closing, get to closure, and watch how much more your sales improves and a lot bigger that you continue to go. As always, guys, if you got any value out of this episode, please do us a favor. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Hit the bell. If you're listening on podcast, make sure you subscribe and follow the show. And please share this out with one person who may get value out of this. Love you, mean it. See you, bye.